So here's a movie where the review I'd honestly prefer to give would be to tell you that Colossal is fucking awesome, one of the coolest things anyone has ever done with a monster movie, that it's almost certainly going to make my top 10 for the year, and that you should just go the hell out and see it right the hell now with no further information and just let it surprise the hell out of you like it surprised the hell out of me. You know, because surprise isn't just about plot spoilers, it's about tone and technique, other things that a longer review kinda has to touch on. But I can't really do that because, you know, you might turn off the video early, and I do this for a living. So, I don't know, guys. Go see the movie, but if you haven't seen it yet, maybe let the rest of this video play with the sound off. I mean, there's gonna be pictures. Some of them are of Anne Hathaway, that's always nice. But yeah, Colossal is one hell of a movie, arriving at a moment where I seem to find myself saying that a lot more than feels typical of the late winter movie schedule. Between this, Get Out, and Logan, it feels like we're living through a seriously strong cycle for filmmakers taking fascinating risks with genre material. And the idea that three of the best currently running examples of strong human drama and risk-taking narratives are a kaiju movie, a horror flick, and a fucking X-Men spinoff is really worth keeping an eye on and noticing once in a while. Now, of those three, Colossal is absolutely the most far removed from a mainstream sensibility. It's very much an independent movie riffing on the conventions of a still fairly niche genre, decidedly more interested in the human-level aspect of its story. What sets it apart, however, is that writer director Nacho Vigalondo is very much skating the same edge as Charlie Kaufman scripted productions like Being John Malkovich or Anomalisa, where even though the high-concept weird stuff is absolutely serving as a metaphor for the realistic human stakes, it chooses to resolve those stakes by following the high concept to its logical extreme. In other words, yes, this is a movie where giant monsters rampaging through a city in Asia is serving as a literalized metaphor for Anne Hathaway grappling with abuse, addiction, and self-destructive behavior. But the grappling becomes increasingly literal until solving the big silly monster issue is the tool for solving the more personal issues. In any case, the premise here is that Hathaway is a failed writer whose myriad insecurities, alcoholism, and various other self-destructive behaviors have finally caught up and cost her her job, her latest boyfriend, and her ability to continue living in New York City. She retreats back to the nowhere special small town she grew up in and immediately falls back into an understandable but still fairly pathetic friendship with a childhood buddy played by Jason Sudeikis, who at first seems to be simply nursing a long unrequited crush, but fairly early on indicates that there's something much darker going on there. Those dynamics are at first obscured, however, because like the rest of the world, Hathaway and her crew of new old drinking buddies are distracted by news that a real-life giant kaiju-style monster has begun randomly materializing in and out of thin air to wreak havoc in Seoul, South Korea. Soon after, our heroine discovers the shocking reality that she is actually the monster, that through some unexplained phenomena, when she enters a certain part of her hometown, it causes a giant monster to appear on the other side of the world and mimic her movements, meaning that the horrific grand-scale rampages of destruction that have been terrifying the world and killing God knows how many people has actually just been Anne Hathaway stumbling home drunk. Now again, obvious clever metaphor is obvious, i.e. recognizing the blast radius of what we think is only self-destructive behavior. But what takes Colossal to the next level and firmly establishes Vigalondo as some kind of genuine mad genius is that he's willing to make the narrative get real in tandem with the premise. The exact same moment where the plot of Colossal pulls back to remind us that no, this is not actually a cool thing to have happen, this would be terrifying, is one and the same with the point where the character narrative puts a hand up and says, hey, in case you forgot to notice, there is something clearly a lot more dark and broken and insidious about the dynamic between these people, and it is not getting better. And yeah, if you know your kaiju movies, you probably have some idea how these two narratives will inevitably coalesce, but maybe not just how deep into either the logical or psychological core of his own premise Vigalondo is ultimately planning to dive. To say any more would be spoiling, but Anne Hathaway, fucking unbelievable in the lead role. I mean, I guess you kind of have to have already assumed that she would be, since she's more than proven herself to be one of the best working actresses of her generation, but it really is remarkable to watch her not only carry off a performance that pretty much has to serve as the relatable human anchor of an absurdly fantastical story that could easily have stumbled and turned into smarmy hipster genre parody at any moment, and do so while realistically portraying a character who is damaged and frustrating in a very un-Hollywood kind of way. But the big surprise is Sudeikis, whose bona fides as a rock-solid comedy straight man are well established, but here he reveals a genuinely fearsome, dramatic persona. It's difficult to get down into the weeds of just why he's so good in this without giving away the whole game, but suffice it to say Colossal would not work if he wasn't able to nail a very specific tone of performance between compelling and deeply uncomfortable, and then carry it to a place so dark and fantastical that I'm still amazed that it even worked. Colossal is a magnificently unique, special movie that deserves to be seen by all. It is different, it is fascinating, it's deeply emotional and effective, and it leaves its audience with a lot to think about, both in terms of implications of its premise, but what it has to say about toxic relationships, social expectations, and the way we do or don't take responsibility for our own lives. 4 stars, an absolute masterpiece. Do not let this one pass you by.